I was at my friend's apartment the other day, and we were engaging in a real academic discussion. A lot of really good intellectual conversation happening. Some of the conversations were surrounded around debate about would you rather this or that. And some of the topics that we discussed are, would you rather have a baboon's butt or a tail? Would you rather fight an alligator or your dad naked? And in the midst of these really academic conversations and really heated debate, words were being thrown out and they were not being used intentionally. In defense of a person's side, they would say, "You're crazy," or "You're insane," "That's hilarious," "That's wild," etc., etc. You get the idea. And so while listening to my friends and myself argue about this and that or would you rather, it sort of dawned upon me that the intention of language in some words has been lost. And so an example of this is the word hilarious. The word hilarious in and of itself means so funny, you almost went insane. Or the word insane, meaning not in a proper mental state. And so while we like to laugh and joke in using these words, it really brings me back to that dilution of language that we have ran into as a culture and as a society. And one of the words at my age and at a university that I've run into that I believe has been diluted to almost water is the word empathy. True empathy. And for those of you watching in this TED Talk, I'd like to outline a couple things from empathy. Empathy being part of truth, truth being part of honesty, and then honesty as part of business and being good strategy implementation. And so back to this dilution of the word empathy. When I think about empathy as just a purely textbook definition, I think about the idea of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And so a lot of the times when friends come to me with precarious situations or people are talking about how their day went or something bad happened, a lot of people say, "I know how you feel," without really thinking about what event has just occurred or what situation this person is currently in. A lot of people jump the gun into saying, "Well, I know how you feel," or "That sucks," or "Dude, it's all right, man," or I guess that's just how my friends talk. But true and genuine honest empathy is seeking to understand how this person feels, but also knowing that you'll never be there 100%. So if the idea is putting yourself into someone's shoes, not everybody wears the same size. And so in that, I think David Novak puts it very eloquently about being extraordinarily authentic. And the fact is that it's okay to say, "I don't know." In these situations when you're dealing with people, sometimes saying "I don't know" is the best thing you can do because it would be disingenuous to say otherwise. There are some situations that my friends have run into that, quite frankly, I couldn't imagine being a part of. But I think the conversation at that point with your friend or with your coworker or with your classmate shifts from "I know how you feel, bro," or "I'm trying to understand how you feel," to "I don't know how you feel, but we are going to get through this together." And what this sort of creates is this bond of trust that I think David Novak in Taking People With You talks about so frequently, is that trust is the basis of every relationship. Open, honest communication is the basis to every business transaction. It's the basis to life. And so when your company or when your friend trusts you, that implies that they're willing to take your suggestions or your advice. I don't take advice from people that I don't trust or that aren't in my circle. And so this leads me into sort of the business side of trust, which is strategy. Sometimes strategy is pretty cut and dry and standard, but in the world we live in as advertising professionals, with the landscape changing as frequently as it is, strategy isn't always set. It's always moving because psychographics are changing, demographics are changing, technology is changing. And so within the world of marketing and advertising, we are constantly challenged to adapt and evolve our strategy. And without the trust of your team or your firm, your strategy is going to be subpar and will be swept by the competition. So David Novak talks about, in the headline, "Tell it how it is and what it could be." And again, trust being the basis to this idea of strategy, if you can't tell it how it is and your teammates don't trust you, you will never get to what you think as a leader it could be. And so back to this, looping back around to this concept of empathy that has been so diluted, I think the basis of trust is this will to be empathetic, which builds trust, and trust builds a good team, and a good team builds great strategy that's new, fresh, innovative, and succeeds. Thanks.